With Peyton Manning retired, Tom Brady nearing the end, who's going to lead the NFL into the next generation? That's what Brendan and I are going to talk about today. Brendan and Albert, baby, welcome back to the show. The Young Gunners. That's the topic of discussion today. Let's talk about these young guys.
Let's do it, guys. I mean, look, the quarterback is the most important position in the NFL, and, we are in a golden era. I mean, we got at least 4 to 5 Hall of Fame quarterbacks we're watching play right now, and unfortunately, a lot of those guys are all in the same age group, so we're going to see a ton of them, retire soon, and then what? So that's really what we're here to talk about, guys. Who's next?
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. We're going to talk about quarterbacks that are still currently on their rookie deal. So Derek Carr, no longer on the list. Just signed his contract extension. So that means no Andrew Luck. We're really going to keep this young. And we're basically going to rank this by ceiling. So whoever we think has the most potential. So that's how we're going to do it. What do you think, Brendan?
I love it. Love it, love it, love it. It's all about where we're going from here, and that's obviously going to be something we're going to try to accomplish. We're going to kind of talk about, guys, the fact that, look, all Eagles fans are automatically going to say, well, Dak has better weapons than Wentz. And you know what? In a certain line, yeah, you're right. But you know what? In the end of the day, Brady never had good weapons. He did just fine in his career, okay? So we're going to try our best to throw out what weapons, offensive line, support staff those quarterbacks have around them. We will acknowledge it. That certainly does help. But let's not get into the point where we're going to say, well, this guy's going to be successful because he's better players. We're going to do our best today, guys, and try to talk about each quarterback and why we think this guy's higher ceiling than the next.
Yeah. Well, there's a 1A and a 1B to this, in my opinion. Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston. Now, you have Jameis Winston at number 1. I have Mariota. And really, the only difference for me is I think Winston takes just a little bit more chances, and Mariota is a little bit smarter with the ball. But other than that, I mean, you got two guys that are just going to kill this league the next decade.
You're not wrong, Adrian. I mean, when you look at the statistics, Winston has twice as many interceptions as Mariota. So your assessment there, Winston takes more chances with the football, is certainly accurate. Now, the trade-off, I will say, and here's the big reason I put Winston ahead of Mariota, Winston's played more games. I mean, Mariota is a little bit of an injury bug. We're not saying, hey, someone you got to run away from, but Winston certainly is a more polished health quarterback. I think he's also a better system fit for the NFL. Mariota, if you look at a lot of stuff they do, a lot of the stuff is still very much slowly building into a pro-style offense. Winston came in ready to roll in a pro-style offense. So the other thing I will say when we look at Winston's close to 20 turnovers, a lot of those interceptions and things like that are the 50-50 balls he puts up there to Mike Evans. And look, if you had Mike Evans, you would do the same thing. You put the ball up there. So I have Winston a little bit ahead of Mariota.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to see because obviously the Bucs and the Titans, they're in positions to take big steps forward this year, and Mariota, Winston will really get to really gauge them, I think. So, but Mariota for me, I mean, the ball placement, the accuracy, I think is impeccable. He's got the great mechanics, compact, smooth release, but mobile in the pocket and outside of it. And he shows the awareness to keep his eyes downfield to look for open receivers instead of taking off and running, which is what a lot of quarterbacks kind of used to do. Now this is kind of changing a little bit. A lot of guys like Russell Wilson, for example, great job of doing this, and Mariota is doing it as well. So this is kind of like, you talk about the pro style, and Winston kind of fits that mold of like the old school pro style quarterback, pocket quarterback. But the league is kind of going into a new direction a little bit with these mobile quarterbacks, and Mariota, I think, is at the top of it right now.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. For the athleticism, I mean, Mariota's athleticism is, superior in comparison to Winston. Not that Winston's a, Phillip Rivers statue back there. Winston can move around a little bit, but Winston's big thing is he wants to beat you with his arm. He is a little more traditional in that sense. Mariota, I don't want to say the word gimmick because it makes it sound like he's a one-trick pony, but Mariota certainly has a different tool set that, brings up. Now, Mariota and the Titans have a much better offensive line than the Buccaneers do. Now it'll be really interesting for me to see now that Mariota not only brought in Corey Davis, they signed Eric Decker, so now they have two really good potential receivers. They have a very good tight end there, and then of course you look over at Tampa, they have Vincent Jackson, they have Mike Evans, they signed Deshaun Jackson, drafted O.J. Howard. Both of these quarterbacks are in positions where there's no excuses anymore. They should both be in playoff contention divisions here.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah, and moving on to Winston, I mean, you pretty much nailed it on the head. I really don't need to discuss further, but I definitely – the things that I love about Winston, I mean, the it qualities, the leadership, commanding that huddle, giving that pregame speech. I mean, that's something that Mariota's not really known for. He's more of the quiet type. So Winston really has all those characteristics, and wherever he goes, he wins. It's just what he does. He's also clutch in 2-minute situations as well. So he's got that. I mean, it's apples and oranges when you're picking between these two guys. But I just think Mariota's just a little bit more upside, just because I kind of see where the game is going, and I kind of think he fits the new mold of quarterback.
Yeah, and here's the thing. There's no right or wrong answer between the two of them. Aside from these two quarterbacks, there's probably 20 teams in the NFL who would say, yeah, we would take these guys over, our traditional starting quarterback, except for teams, of course, like the Packers and the Patriots, etc. But, yeah, these guys, there's no doubt. And the only thing I will tell people is don't get it twisted. Don't think that if you're an introvert or an extrovert, that determines if you're a leader. Both of these guys are leaders. Mariota's just an introvert. Doesn't mean he's going to bang helmets with people, but he's still a leader. So, yeah, both of these guys are definitely top of our list.
Yeah, definitely still a leader. Just I think Winston's got just more of that. He's got that it. That's all. So, all right, moving on. Dak Prescott, Carson Wentz. Now, for my annual quarterback rankings that I'm going to do, I do have Dak ahead of Carson, which is going to piss people in Philadelphia off. But in terms of the ceilings, I mean, I think Wentz has a higher one. But you disagree with that. I'll let you talk about Dak right now, and we're about to get some dislikes because people are not going to agree with you.
Oh, yeah. I can feel the hate coming on hard here. Now, here's the thing. I think for where we are today, Dak is ahead of Wentz. I mean, he's plus 10 in the difference between the interceptions between the two of them. The one thing I will kind of give Carson Wentz a little nod. A lot of people kind of say, "Oh, well, he's a Charlie checkdown quarterback." Well, not really. I mean, at least last year, his checkdown numbers for 20 yards and under, very similar to Dak's. The one thing I will say that I like about Dak a little more is I like the fact that he does a little better of a job at keeping true vision all the way through. I mean, I think when I'm watching him and his reads of progressions, I think he's ahead of Carson Wentz in that right now. I think he's ahead of the opportunity of coming off of the number one, coming down to the number two, then coming to the number three option. I think Wentz goes 1, 2, okay, time to run. I'm not saying that Wentz isn't going to be there. I think Dak's a little bit ahead of that. Now, that said, as the two of them, throwing motion, upper body, everything like that, I like Wentz's ability a little more than Dak. So down the line, I think Wentz can certainly top Dak. But personally, right now, I think Dak's in a perfect situation for him. He's a great job at, running what he needs to. And to be fair, I don't know if Dak's ever going to get any better than he had this season this year. Now, the season he had this year was a Pro Bowl level this year. And I think in the top 100 players, I think he scored in the top 25 this year. So
14 or something. Well, I thought that was like absurd, but that's just
it was a little absurd. But I mean, for him to have a top 25 season, I think that's fair. But I don't think we're ever going to see Dak become Peyton Manning or Brady. I think Wentz certainly has that opportunities now that the Eagles are getting a full offseason with new weapons for him. Excuses are gone for Carson Wentz. He is in full mode right now, and at the end of this season, there'll be no discussion. Is Wentz better than Dak, or is Dak better than Wentz? This is the season we really have to find out who's better than who.
Yeah, here's what I'll say about Dak. I do think he's legit. I don't think he's like what Philadelphia Eagles fans think. He's overrated and benefiting from all the weapons. I mean, obviously, sure, it's helping him out. But I don't think like the extent of that help is some absurdity or anything. He's great from the pocket, man. He's really, really accurate with the ball. Now, the one thing that I will say in regards to what Eagles fans say, in terms of the offensive line, what I did notice in college where he struggled at pressure up the middle, and this caused him to make mistakes. But obviously, with that great offensive line, he really doesn't get touched that much. I mean, there was some games where I'm watching him and he's just back there for like 10 seconds getting to scan the field and not have to worry about getting pressured at all. So I think that does help him out tremendously. And, we'll really see the type of step that Wentz takes this year because there's no excuses now. He's got his weapons. He's got Alshon Jeffrey. He's got Torrey Smith. So now that there's guys in the fold, I mean, because last year, geez, man, there are a couple times where, he's trying to escape the pocket. He keeps his eyes downfield. And guys just aren't coming back to the ball. That's not going to be a problem this year. Other things that he would do, he would try to loft jump ball situations, but a guy like Bryce Treggs, he's just simply not going to fight for a ball like Alshon Jeffrey will. So things like that. I mean, that's what I saw from Wentz last year. Definitely, threw a little bit more interceptions than I would have liked, but I think he has the higher ceiling of the two. I think, Dak, that's a good point you make, kind of like a finished product, but there is going to still be some improvement. But Wentz, I think, can make a really big leap where Prescott, I think, can still make a leap, but he's already kind of is what he is, I think.
Yeah. And, I'll say this, too, for the overall, for when we're thinking about the NFC East, let's just kind of spin it forward 2 years. All right. I think in 2 years, that's a realistic thing for us to say, okay, we'll have a definitive statement of what Dak is. We'll have a definitive statement of what Carson Wentz is. If Cousins is still around, we'll 100% know what Cousins is. And in 2 years, Eli's probably going to be retired, and Davis Webb looked like he's going to get handed the keys to the Giants offense. If Davis Webb hits, we might be looking at the greatest quarterback, situation for the next decade. Because all 4 teams in the same division could have Pro Bowl level quarterbacks, which has never happened in the NFL. That would be really, really special. And that said, it's pretty easy to be a Pro Bowl quarterback when you have Odell Beckham, as one of your options there, okay? Yes. So, when we're looking at the future of the NFC East, the great things for Eagles, awesome, you got a quarterback. Bad news, everyone else does too.
Yeah, it's gonna be a rough division, that's for sure. And it's crazy how quickly it improved. The NFC East used to be the NFC least, and now it's a beast. So, pretty crazy. All right, 5th guy. This is where we had trouble. We had to scour thin and deep because we couldn't put Carr on the list anymore. But, all right, actually, before we get to our 5th guy, before the extension, would you have put Carr ahead of Winston and Mariota? Where would you have put him?
Oh, yeah. Derek Carr. Okay. It would have been Derek Carr, big gap, Mariota, Winston, big gap.
Right. I think Derek Carr is the real deal as well. So, yeah, I'm with you. He earned every single penny of that contract extension. So getting into our number 5 guy, this was difficult, man. I really couldn't think of one. And maybe this is crazy to say because he's never really played, but I went Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's my 5 guy. What about you?
Well, I mean, for everyone out there, everyone's like, Jimmy Garoppolo, you're 5. Well, let me just kind of
we struggled because there's nobody else.
Yeah. Well, let me share with you guys who the other options were. Teddy Bridgewater, who his career might be over. Bortles, which, we know what he is. Yeah. Paxton Lynch, haven't really seen enough of him. Jared Goff, I don't think he's in a great spot to win or anything. A.J. McCarron, Cody Kessler, I mean, there's not much else here. So, yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo is the 5 guy. Now, it's going to be really freaking interesting because he's at the end of his contract year this year. Yeah. So, the Patriots historically are that team who likes to short players financially and then spend on veterans, and get someone later in their career or maybe make a trade to get a starter. So, it's going to be really interesting to see what do the Patriots do with Jimmy Garoppolo at the end of his rookie contract. Not that we ever hope for an injury, but if somehow Jimmy Garoppolo ends up playing extended snaps this season and he plays well, I'm not saying the Patriots are going to chase Tom Brady out, but I'm sure if Brady comes back to them and says, I'm thinking about retirement, they might say, well, you've had a good run. They might not beg as much as you would think because they're in a situation where they got to piss or get off the pot with Jimmy Garoppolo. They decide not to trade him this offseason, so be it. He's got 4 touchdowns, 500 yards on his relatively short resume. For what he's done, he's looked good. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do with his rookie contract coming up.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how Brady's career plays itself out. He has stated that he wants to play till 45. Whether or not his body actually handles all that, that's another question. Garoppolo, I mean, yeah, we haven't seen much of him, but from what I have seen, I really like that quick release that he has. From some preseason games. So I do watch the preseason pretty extensively because of guys that I normally don't watch. I get to watch like a Garoppolo, and I think he's pretty poised in the pocket. I like him. I'm kind of surprised that nobody traded for him during the draft because, well, he was a better prospect than everybody else. I'd take him over Trubisky, Watson, for real. Like, it's not even close.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I mean, this is where it becomes – this is one of those things, unfortunately, we'll never know. Did a team not trade for him or the Patriots not agree to a trade? Because there's obviously two, very different kind of conversations there. But to be fair, the flip side, if I'm the Bears, do I really want to trade for a quarterback who I don't know much about when I just signed a ton of money in a quarterback that I expect is going to get his head kicked in for the next 2 years? I don't know. I mean, I don't blame teams for not, playing a devil's ransom for Jimmy Garoppolo. But, man, this is a really interesting situation. I mean, we kind of had it with Castle a couple years ago, where he went to the Chiefs and obviously never really panned out. But, the truth is, in the end of the day, if you're in the NFL and you're a GM or a head coach, there's one position that you have to gamble on is the quarterback. You have to keep taking chances on them. Otherwise, you're never going to be successful.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some other guys. Anybody you might like that, might kind of come out of the woodwork?
This is tough for me because I was a big Teddy Bridgewater fan until
the injury. He would have been the 5 guy had it not been for the injury.
Yeah, he would have been. He's in a tough spot there. I think a guy I'm going to kind of circle with a question mark is going to be A.J. McCarron this year because, I looked at what the Bengals have done. I mean, Marvin Lewis is the second longest tenure head coach in the NFL, which surprises a lot of people when I tell them that. So when you're looking at Andy Dalton, they've given him everything. I mean, they put a ton of money in the offensive line. They have a really good tight end. They got a really nice addition in Joe Mixon as a back, regardless of what you think of him off the field. Invested in John Ross, drafted a top receiver last year too. I mean, there's no room for error for Andy Dalton. He is very much in a situation where he can lose his starting spot this year if he doesn't perform. So A.J. McCarron's a guy I'm kind of curious about. I'm curious to see if Dalton doesn't perform, will the Bengals pull the hook and give A.J. McCarron a nod? Because that offense is ready to win a Super Bowl right now.
Yeah, that's my guy too. Is A.J. McCarron, and the reason why, I mean, I thought he handled himself tremendously. A couple years ago, Andy Dalton had his career season, went down with the injury. Obviously, McCarron was the starting quarterback for their playoff game against the Steelers. And I was really, really impressed by how he handled himself. I mean, the Bengals were, still competitive in that game. I mean, still haven't won a wild card game. But I'm with you, man. I mean, and in a lot of ways, I'd probably rather have McCarron than Dalton. I'm not an Andy Dalton fan at all.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I would probably say Dalton's probably going to get, if I'm management, I would give him probably 5 regular season games, and then we'd sit down and say, okay, is it time to pull a trigger and give AJ his fair share? Dalton needs to start the season hot, simply put, because the Bengals don't have much more room for error before they just say, you know what, we got to blow it up. And I talk about this with my buddy Tony all the time. The worst thing you can be in sports is a contender because it means you're not good enough to win a championship, and it means you're not bad enough to be in a position to draft really top elite players, and that's what the Bengals are. So, I think 5 games in, and A.J. McCarron, we might see him taking more snaps under center than Andy Dalton, should Dalton not perform.
Yeah, and by Tony, you mean Tony D, Tony Del Grosso, a.k.a. Up the Birds.
That's right.
You
I kind of circled here, and I'm curious to see, is Paxton Lynch. We talk all the time about, is it right for the quarterback to sit a year? And that, I mean, for largely speaking, Paxton Lynch, sat the entire year.
Yeah.
He only threw the ball 11 times his rookie year, and he wasn't exactly getting a large sample size, but that's exactly what everyone knew Paxton Lynch needed. They let Simeon go ahead and get his opportunity to play, and honestly, he went into a great situation. So Paxton Lynch, I expect him to kind of rear his head and become maybe a full-fledged starter by at least halfway through the season. Very curious to see what's going to happen to Paxton Lynch. He's probably like my 7 or 8 guy, I would say, as far as the rookies to watch for. But again, he's right there with, Cody Kessler or Golf. I mean, they're all in the same boat now once we really get past that top 3, top 4.
Yeah, I'm not a big Paxton Lynch guy. I wasn't big on him last year. I think he's very raw, and I think he's very stupid. That's, it sounds dumb, but I'm not a Lynch guy. He's got that huge arm, but I don't think he's like exceptionally accurate with it. But like putting him 7 or 8, I mean, that's still fair because, well, there's nobody else. So Blake Bortles, what do you think about him?
Well, Blake Bortles, this is a good one. So Bortles, up until this point, was really asked to lead the offense. And, Bortles, having a career of being almost even with touchdowns, interceptions, I think pretty much shows you the fact that he's not the guy to lead your team, to completely depend on him. So they went out and what did they do? They drafted Leonard Fournette. They got bigger on the offensive line, and frankly, they're going back to that old Giant style of play. Run the ball, and we'll throw the ball when we absolutely have to. Now, they have some weapons out there, but Bortles, he's at the end of his rookie deal at the end of this year. I personally think his time is done as a starter in the NFL. I think you're going to see the rest of his career being one of those guys who will float around as a backup, and I think that's appropriate for him. I don't think he's an NFL starter.
Yeah, I'm actually, as you were talking, I'm running through drafts, and I'm literally trying to find other guys. Somebody that actually interests me that isn't going to play anytime soon. Maybe he'll go somewhere where he after his rookie deal. But Brett Hundley of the Packers. I let again, that new era quarterback, the running and the passing. I didn't hate him at UCLA, but that's just a name to kind of keep an eye on. I think maybe he gets traded at some point if somebody's looking for a quarterback. So that would be a name for me.
Yeah, I mean, Brett Hundley's a good one. When he came out of UCLA, he was one of those guys, similar like a Matt Barkley situation, in how they both, if they came out the year before, they probably would have been a top 10 pick, and then they stayed an extra year and it cost them millions in guaranteed money. So Hundley's a guy, you can kind of circle and question. Obviously, we know Christian Hackenberg. He's another guy that's is out there. Jacoby,
nowhere near my list.
Oh no. No interest in Christian Hackenberg personally. Jacoby Brissett, he's a guy who the Patriots drafted, and he played pretty darn well when he came in this past season. So I was a little surprised that the Patriots didn't trade Jimmy Garoppolo, because to me, I don't know if I have that much more faith in Jimmy versus Jacoby. But obviously the Patriots do.
It's really interesting that they never traded him, because this was the year to do it, especially with this quarterback class. You would have thought that they would have gotten a nice haul, and now he's in the last year of his deal. So interesting.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, honestly, when you're looking back at some of these draft classes, some of them have been pretty rough.
Yeah, we're looking at them right now. It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, our 2014 class, the best quarterback there is Derek Carr, and then the next one I'd probably say is Blake Bortles, because, again, Bridgewater, he's not really going to play. You go into the 15 class, obviously you had the 1-2 picks and Jameis and Marcus, and then the next best one is Trevor Siemian, who was a 7th-round pick. You get into the 16 class, Wentz and Dak are the only ones who we're really confident about. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there now that are walking question marks. I wouldn't be surprised in the next couple years if we all of a sudden start seeing, wow, look how good the defenses are. It's like, these quarterbacks just might not necessarily be as good as, Tom Brady, the best quarterback ever, or Peyton Manning, probably the second best, or Rivers, or Drew Brees, or Roethlisberger. I mean, we are living in such a dynamic and blessed situation of quarterbacks that the next couple of years we might be in for a rough couple time, Adrian, when it comes to looking at the receivers, because they're not getting the options of quarterbacks.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, they're really talking up this quarterback class for next season. They're really hyping it up. So maybe that's the class that kind of turns it around. But I'm with you, man. I mean, when some of these guys go, like Brady and Brees, and Aaron Rodgers isn't getting any younger either. He's like 32 now, so he's going to be there in a couple of years. Yeah, Drew Brees. Yes, so some of these guys, who's going to take that torch? So we'll see. Bryce Petty. What about him? Does he win the job in New York?
No.
Yeah, I don't like Baylor guys.
No. Everything in the Jets is just bad. I had a quarterback coach that I worked with who told me he interviewed Bryce Petty, and when he sat down with him, he asked him, he said, okay, he handed him the remote, and they said, okay, go through a couple clicks, and Bryce Petty literally had to ask him how to use the remote, and that's when he realized he's never watched film. So no.
Well, here, let me just quick scheme some Art Briles offense. Hold on. Let me just quick scheme. So basically, just here you go. My pen ran out of ink. So this isn't hard to scheme. So you got your offensive line, and then you just got 4 guys going straight up the field.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Pretty much. Yep.
4 verticals.
I mean, look, the Jets are in a full-on tank mode. So they're starting for them. If Hackenberger starts for them, I mean, honestly, if you're the Jets, just start someone and just say, all right, we're going to split the season up into thirds, and we're just going to see what happens.
Well, this is the year to tank. They got the quarterbacks next year.
Yeah.
So I would actually recommend them tanking. I trust the process of tanking. I love it.
I mean, look, in the NFL, there's no gambling at the end. There's no lottery. If you're the worst team, you get the top pick. That's simple. Yeah. The difference is, obviously when we're talking about the NFL versus the NBA, is the NFL is so much more lucrative, than the NBA. So these owners are getting so much more money. So for them, the idea of tanking is a bigger financial hardship for them. But look, the Jets, you're not going to be good no matter what. So in many ways, I applaud them because they're realistic. They're the best case scenario, you win 5 games and you get the 6th pick, kind of thing.
They'd be lucky to win 5 games, man, for real. All right, this quarterback class, we just had it. Deshaun Watson, Mitchell Trubisky, Patrick Mahomes, DeShone Kizer. Which one of those guys do you like the most?
I still like Trubisky the most. But I'm probably going to say Watson's in the best situation. So we could see a situation like, Watson puts up better numbers than Trubisky. But if we sit here and we kind of look back on it, we also could say, oh, well, he has the Dak Prescott effect. He's got a really good run game, a good offensive line, a pretty good, obviously with Winston or with Watson, an elite defense and an elite receiver in Nuke. So I would say Watson's probably going to have the better statistics this year, but I still like Mitch long term.
For Watson, man, I like the situation that he's in. It's a shame that Houston hasn't had a quarterback the last couple years, because I'm trying to imagine a Deshaun Watson-led Texans team. Imagine if he was like in his 3rd year right now with that defense. That'd be pretty scary, but he's a rookie. And J.J. Watt isn't going to be getting any younger. So we'll see if, J.J. Watt can still continue playing at that level, 2-3 years from now when Watson really gets it going.
Yeah, and honestly, Adrian, exactly what you just said is exactly why the Texans had to overpay for Brock Osweiler last year, because they realized we have to win now, so we have to roll the dice and hope that Osweiler checks out. Obviously, it didn't. And people are like, oh, haha, LOL, look at you. It's like, no, that's what has to happen. Like, you have to have an elite level quarterback in this generation to go to the Super Bowl. So that's why the Texans overpaid for him. Obviously, it didn't work out, and that's why they drafted Deshaun Watson. But that's what happens. You have to gamble. And look, that's another reason why the Chiefs traded up and traded all their picks to make sure they could go and get Pat Mahomes, because you can't be successful if you don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, and well, the thing for me was I just wouldn't have done what the Texans did. I mean, see, we got to remember too, though. Last year, it wasn't considered a great quarterback class, and then all of a sudden, you know, the guys that went 1 and 2, well, they really weren't supposed to go 1 and 2, but they did. They weren't, you know, it wasn't a quarterback class like great ones before, obviously. So we'll see how things pan out. Obviously, Wentz looks like he might be the real deal, and so as well as Prescott. But Jared Goff, some of the other guys, maybe not so much.
Yeah, I mean, look, the best player out of last year's draft was Joey Bosa. Okay, I mean, like, Joey Bosa was the best player in last year's draft. Ezekiel Elliott was probably the second best. I mean, there's a ton of guys who are way better players than Jared Goff and Carson Wentz. But it doesn't matter, because when it comes to the quarterback situation, it's about the value of the position, not necessarily about the, you know, skill of that quarterback or that player. Yeah.
So, you know, last year that's what Houston was evaluating. They saw the class, they didn't like it, so they're like, all right, we're going to attack free agency. I wasn't an Osweiler guy, but like, it's hard not to defend what they did, because they tried. It just didn't work out for them. I mean, I knew Brock wasn't good, but I don't know. Now they got Watson, so we'll see.
Yep, I get it. But that's the world we live in, guys. So that's why we want to make sure we conquered, you know, talking about the future of these quarterbacks here, because, you know, when we talk about the future of the quarterbacks, it's actually saying the future of NFL teams. You know, it's very rare you have a good quarterback on a bad team.
And that's a good point that you brought up earlier. You know, just keep going after those quarterbacks. Just keep drafting them until you hit them. And that was the Seattle Seahawks theory with Russell Wilson. If you remember, obviously they signed Matt Flynn to a huge contract, and they draft Russell Wilson. I believe they also drafted somebody the year before, but Wilson obviously turned out for them. And we're kind of seeing this a little bit in Cleveland now. They draft DeShone Kizer in the second round. Obviously, they have a plethora of picks that they acquired from the Eagles trade with Wentz last year. So you got that. You got Cody Kessler. We'll see how the Browns do. I'm sure they're going to pick another quarterback next year.
Sure. I mean, look, they did the same thing with the Redskins when they drafted RG3, and then later they went and got Kirk Cousins. Now they have their starting quarterback. I mean, just in my opinion, every NFL team should draft a quarterback every year. You should draft one and just kind of see what happens. And best case scenario, he becomes a starter. Or if you're a team like the Patriots, you can then trade him and get more assets for him. So, yeah, you have to do it. The only trick about all of this, and it's going to be a unique thing to see in Cleveland, you're going to have Cody Kessler as a second-year player, Kizer as a 2-year player, and then they're going to draft another quarterback next year. So essentially they'll have their roster would be a guy on his third year, a guy in his second year, and a guy in his first year. You don't really have any veteran leadership. And the other trade-off then becomes is how do we split the reps to ensure that each guy has a chance to develop and, more importantly, has the time to ensure we're not going to trade away the one we shouldn't. So that's where it gets tricky. But, yeah, I mean, if you're in a situation like the Browns, you got to keep drafting them. No choice.
Yeah, I agree. Even though Kizer, like, I wasn't a big fan of him, where they took him at that spot, I mean, it was a no-brainer. So, you know.
Well, and that's the thing. Like you said, Adrian, it's where they took him. You know, they took Myles Garrett, you know, at 1, and then they ended up getting guys like Julius Peppers, and they ended up getting Njoku in the first. So they used their first-rounders on first-round talent and let the quarterback, where they rightfully so drafted him where he should have been.
Yeah, exactly. All right, anything else on the agenda?
That's it, my man. Quarterback's the future, and you got to have one.
All right, so I can't wait for the show that we're going to do next week. We're going to do it today. Unfortunately, so you haven't met Philly 500 yet, but this is going to be awesome when we do this next week. So we are going to debate which defense was better. So you're a Ravens fan. So you get to talk about the 2000 Ravens. Philly 500 and I are gonna gang pile on you and defend the 1991 Eagles defense. Even though, to an extent, I don't know if I fully agree they're the best defense, because the Ravens obviously won a Super Bowl. But obviously bias is going to come into play. So I will be defending the Eagles defense. I don't care. And I'm definitely not defending the Bucs defense. That's not happening.
Good luck. I got the Super Bowl ring. I'm on top of the mountain yelling down to the guys yelling up at me. But yeah, sure. I'm looking forward to that conversation, guys.
Yeah. You got your Super Bowl ring. Just imagine if Randall Cunningham didn't get hurt. Eagles would have won a damn Super Bowl. Damn it.
Oh, my
But yeah, that's going to be a really fun discussion next week. And you know, I've been watching a couple games from 1991 to really study it up. So I am a historian. I'm trying to find the House of Pain game. I really want to watch that between the Oilers and the Eagles. So if anyone can actually knows where to find it, that'd be great if they could show me. But other than that, nothing else to talk about. You got any more? You got final thoughts?
That's it. I'm good.
All right. That's Brendan Albert. I'm Adrian Fecue. Don't dislike this video just because Brendan took Dak over Wentz. He's just stupid, and that's it. We're out. See ya.